15 spine-chilling true tales exposed from the haunted depths of Reddit's sinister secrets. In the quiet suburb of Maplewood, where the neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences painted a picture of serenity, an unspeakable terror lurked beneath the surface. Lisa, a single mother working the night shift at a local diner, felt the creeping chill of dread as she glanced at the clock. Every night she entrusted her 2 young kids to Mr. Richards, the well-respected neighbor who always had a smile and a helping hand. But tonight was different. An unsettling feeling coiled tightly in her stomach like a serpent ready to strike. As she stepped into the night, shadows clung to her heels, whispering doubts that should have been gone. Inside the bustling diner, the clatter of plates and the sizzle of the grill provided a backdrop that felt almost comforting. Yet, Lisa couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her heart. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Her hand trembled as she unlocked the screen. The words sent icy tendrils creeping along her spine, describing her children's routines with unsettling accuracy. "Your son loves his blue dinosaur. Can't wait to see what he's up to tonight." Each message felt like a knife twisted in her gut. Who was this? Was it a sick prank? As she served coffee and pie to late-night customers, snippets of her overheard conversations surfaced. Whispers about Mr. Richards, rumors of his dark past that painted him in shades of gray rather than the innocent old man he seemed. Panic flickered in her chest like a candle in the wind. No, it couldn't be him, could it? She quickly pushed those fears aside, trying to cling to reason. But with each sinister text, the walls around her tightened. They felt like a noose in an unknown hand. Just as the clock ticked on, she called the police, her voice shaking as she reported the messages. Their reply, dismissive and almost mocking, echoed in her mind. "Ma'am, it's probably just kids messing around. You need to calm down." Desperation clawed at her throat, leaving her feeling raw and vulnerable. After shifting plates and cleaning mugs all night, a chilling weight settled onto her shoulders as she stepped outside. Gritting her teeth, she rushed home, dread pooling in her gut. The walk home felt endless, shadows stretching, creeping alongside her. When she arrived, something was off. The lights in her house were out. Silence wrapped around her like a shroud. Heart racing, she sprinted to the backyard. The door, ajar. It shouldn't have been. With trembling hands, she pushed it open and stepped in. Panic surged as she scanned the dimness. Where were her kids? Inside, the horrors unfolded like a ghastly nightmare. Evidence of wrongness clawed at the edges of her sanity. A worn teddy bear lay on the floor, dirtied and abandoned, a sign of the chaos that came before her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again, another message. "They should have listened. You're next." Frozen in place, Lisa felt the icy grip of terror clutching her throat as shadows deepened and the darkness whispered secrets she was not ready to hear. Was she too late? Did she even really know the man next door? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As she stood paralyzed by fear, memories of laughter filled the air, an echo of her children's voices. But now, it felt hollow. What had she done? The air thickened, the darkness closing in, gripping her heart like a vice. She could feel it, the encroaching threat, the reality twisted into a nightmare. There was no escape from the impending dread. Her mind raced, heart pounding, facing shadows that no longer felt like home. The next move was crucial, but time was running out, and each breath could be their last. Lisa's breath came in shallow gasps, her mind racing as she battled the fear that clawed at her sanity. She forced herself to move, stepping further into the suffocating darkness of her home. The silence felt alive, pulsating with malice. Each creak of the floorboards beneath her feet seemed exaggerated, echoing like a warning. "Kids?" she called, her voice quivering with desperation. The emptiness swallowed her words whole. She fumbled for the light switch, but nothing happened. The darkness wrapped around her like a thick cloak, suffocating and oppressive. Racing to the living room, her heart hammered against her ribs. The couch was overturned, cushions strewn about like discarded dreams. A chill crawled along her spine as she stepped over the mess, her feet brushing against soft fabric that felt entirely out of place. She stifled a surge of nausea when she recognized the blue dinosaur, the one she bought for her son on his last birthday. Why was it here? Panic surged anew. She sprinted towards the hallway, willing her voice to remain steady. Every room along the way felt like a mouth ready to swallow her whole. She threw open the first door, and there it was, the dim shape of her daughter's bedroom. Inside, everything appeared normal, except for the thick unease thrumming in the air. Plush toys stood vigilant, guarding the space, but her daughter was nowhere to be found. The bed was neatly made, a stark contrast to the chaos that enveloped her. Had he taken them, or was this simply a sick game? Just as doubt began to seep in, her phone buzzed again, a new text cutting through the silence. She grimaced, certain it would be more taunting words from the unknown sender. Plucking up courage, she glanced at the screen. "I'm waiting, but you're about to find out what happens when you get too close." Her heart dropped into her stomach. The thread connecting her children's absence to the sinister messages became a taut string of dread ready to snap. "No," she whispered, bounding back to the living room, her mind frantically searching for answers. If Mr. Richards was involved, she had to confront him. But how could she protect her kids? Lisa stumbled towards the front door, the cold air greeting her like a ghost as she burst outside. The familiar street felt foreign and twisted under the weight of her fear. It was a leaf-strewn path leading to uncertainty. Each shadow lurking at the corners of her vision beckoned with the promise of danger. Rushing towards Mr. Richards' house, she reminded herself he was just a neighbor, a friendly old man. But was he just that? As she approached his front porch, unease gnawed relentlessly at her. Lisa rapped her knuckles against the door, heart racing with every second of silence that stretched on. She clenched her jaw, trying to force reason into the chaos that clouded her thoughts. This could be it, the confrontation that could either save her children or plunge her deeper into darkness. But then the door creaked open, revealing Mr. Richards, his smile unchanging and unwavering. "Lisa, what brings you here at this hour?" he asked, eyes flickering, a hint of something unsettling lurking behind them. She opened her mouth to answer, but the words caught in her throat like poison. "I need to know where my kids are." "Why don't you come in?" he suggested, that same smile twisting just a bit too wide. An icy shiver swept through her. The dread pulsated, telling her to flee, yet she was rooted in place, fear and curiosity battling within her. What lay behind that door? Did she truly want to know the truth? As shadows deepened around her, Lisa felt something shift, like a dark tide pulling her in. She stood on the razor's edge between safety and horror, the night promising secrets she might not be prepared to face. And somewhere in the depths of the house, a child's laughter faintly echoed. What had she stumbled into? The air thickened, almost as if the night itself held its breath, waiting for Lisa's response. "Come in, just for a moment," Mr. Richards pressed, his voice smooth like oil. She glanced into his home, a dimly lit cavern of shadows that swayed as if alive. The laughter echoed again, a hollow sound that knifed through her. "Where are my kids?" Her voice trembled with shaky defiance, the urgency drowning out the swirling dread threatening to engulf her. Ah, the children. They can be like little stars, flitting about in the night. "You just have to know where to look," he replied, that unsettling grin unwavering. Each word dripped with an underlying malice, awakening something primal within her. Fear flooded her veins, igniting an instinctual fight-or-flight response. Lisa glanced around, desperate for an escape that didn't involve stepping further into the man's home. That chilling laugh rang through the night once more, echoing off the walls of her mind, drowning her in terror for what it implied. "Please," she begged, almost broken. "If you know something—" "That's just it, dear Lisa," he interrupted, his tone shifting, smooth like silk but edged with steel. "Knowing can be such a dangerous thing, can't it? Don't you want to allow the mystery to unfold naturally?" Then, from deep within the shadows of his house, she glimpsed a flicker, a small shape darting behind the curtain of a dimly lit window. Her heart seized. Her daughter? It looked too small, too ethereal, as if it floated rather than walked. "Don't move," he cautioned, stepping past her into the night, eyes burning with an unsettling gleam. Come inside. The game will end so much sooner if you simply—" "No!" The word exploded from her, fueled by sheer panic. She turned, gripping the doorknob as tightly as she could. "I won't go in, not without my children." "Children?" he mused, ignoring her rising terror. He leaned in closer, that awful grin widening. "Children are like plants, you see. They need the right conditions to grow. Some need more nurturing than others." A cold wash of realization gripped her. She stepped back, heart racing, each beat a countdown. "What have you done to them?" He tilted his head, expression unchanging. "What have I done? Or what will I do? Because the night is still young, and I dare say the games we play are only just beginning." Her legs felt like lead, and she turned abruptly to run, sprinting down the porch steps, heart pounding wildly against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to escape, but the shadows in Mr. Richards' yard seemed to stretch and reach out toward her, clawing at her ankles. She stumbled forward, breathless, into the abyss of the night. Running down the street, she desperately searched for any sign of her children. The laughter still echoed, taunting. Each corner of the neighborhood felt like a potential trap, each darkened house cloaked in foreboding. But then a sudden flicker of movement caught her eye. A flash of bright blue, a familiar dinosaur, tumbling into the gutter. She halted, choking back horror and hope. Was it a sign? But before she could grasp the possible implications, her phone buzzed again, sending icy dread racing through her veins. She pulled it from her pocket, shaking as she read the message. "You're closer than you think, but things are far from safe." The street felt different now. Every shadow closed in, watching, waiting. The weight of what hand was orchestrating this sick game crashed down on her like an avalanche. "The game," she whispered to herself, gripping the dinosaur tightly. What had she truly stumbled into? And from somewhere deep within the darkness of the neighbors' yards, she heard the unmistakable sound of frightened whispers. What were they hiding? Lisa felt a tightening knot in her stomach as those whispers drifted through the damp air. The shadows seemed to twist and writhe around her, ink-black tendrils reaching out, hungry for her fear. She turned toward the sound, instinct screaming at her not to approach. "Mom?" The soft voice drifted to her from the gloom, unmistakable, yet distant, like a memory echoing in a vacant hall. It ignited a mix of terror and hope in her chest. "Ella!" Lisa called out, her voice wavering as she edged closer. "Where are you? Where's your brother?" The only reply was the rustle of leaves. Panic surged through her. Every fiber of her being wanted to plunge into the darkness, but the memories of Mr. Richards' mocking grin held her back. He was outside, lurking closer now, no doubt listening to every sound. Suddenly, the laughter returned, louder this time. It echoed down the dark street, a cruel symphony mixing with the whispers. Was it just her imagination, or did the shadows swirl tighter around her? "Mom, please!" Ella's voice trembled, pulling at Lisa's heart. "We're scared." "Stay where you are. I'm coming." Her feet pounded against the pavement as she veered toward the origin of the voice, each step a sacrifice of caution. She thought she saw something in the dark, a glimmer that didn't belong. Moving closer, she saw tiny, pale fingers clutching the edge of a nearby fence, desperately peeking through the slats. "Ella!" She rushed toward the fence, but just as she reached it, the figure vanished, swallowed by the shadows. A deep-rooted dread spilled over her, the fear that perhaps she was too late. "Stay back," a different voice called from the darkness, fierce and frantic. "He'll take you too." What came next froze her breath. From the labyrinth of night, Mr. Richards stepped into view, the moonlight casting ominous shadows along his form. He appeared almost regal in his malevolence, eyes gleaming like a predator. "Ah, the mother bear," he purred, chin lifted, that awful smile stretching his thin lips. "You shouldn't be here, dear Lisa. The game's nearly over. They want to play with you, you know. Their little hearts are so eager. And yours too, if you'll just let it beat a little longer." "Let them go!" she screamed, anger rising, pushing fear aside. "They're my children!" He chuckled softly, but there was nothing light in that sound. Children belong where they feel cherished, and you, dear Lisa, are not the warmth they crave. As she stood paralyzed, he extended one long finger, gesturing toward the shadows. "What are you willing to do for them? To plunge deeper into the darkness? It's a risk, but sometimes—" A shrill scream cut through the air, piercing the thick mantle. Of night. Lisa's heart raced. Was that Ella? "Mom!" With renewed fury, Lisa leapt forward, but darkness clung to her, a web of despair that dragged at her ankles. She felt it tugging at her, trying to draw her back into the night, but the cries fueled her forward. She had to find them. Every shadow morphed into a size more menacing, and for every step the whispers grew louder, filling her ears with chilling secrets, truths she wasn't ready to face. Then, as she rounded the corner of the street, she stumbled upon a sight that froze her blood. In the middle of the cul-de-sac, under the sickly glow of an old street lamp, a group of children, her children, stood circled, their faces blank, eyes wide, as a figure cloaked in darkness beckoned to them with an unsettling invitation. "Welcome to the game," it whispered. Lisa's breath hitched. What were they choosing? And what would she sacrifice to pull them back from the edge of that grotesque circle? "Mom!" cried out one of the figures, and her heart shattered at the sight of their faces. But then, from the shadows, Mr. Richards stepped forward, eyes gleaming. "What happens next, dear Lisa, is entirely up to you." The air chilled, tension mounting, as she faced the choice of salvation or doom. What price would she pay to save her children, and would she risk everything, including her own soul? In the distance, the echoes of laughter began again, harmonizing with the whispers that urged her forward, deeper into the abyss. Was she ready to confront the game, or was this just the beginning of something far worse? Lisa stood at the edge of that grotesque circle, her heart pounding violently against her ribs. The street lamp flickered, casting dancing shadows that amplified the terror clawing at her throat. The figure lurking in the darkness reached out, beckoning to her children, the air thick with an unsettling energy that felt alive, hungry. "Ella! Jacob!" she screamed, voice cracking under the weight of her desperation. Their names burst from her lips like a desperate prayer. "Run! Get away from him!" But the children remained, entranced, their blank stares fixated on the cloaked figure. It loomed above them, an embodiment of despair. Other children, too, stood around, eyes wide but devoid of recognition, as if stolen by the darkness. "Mommy," Ella's voice slipped through, fragile as glass. "We want to play." "No!" Lisa lunged forward, but an unseen force slammed against her, a wall of darkness pinning her in place. Fear surged within her, and she felt a fresh wave of terror as she realized she might truly be losing them. Mr. Richards stepped closer, an unsettling smile twisting his thin lips. "Ah, but they do not merely want to play, dear Lisa. They yearn for connection. You taught them well," he whispered, each word laced with malice. "But your time is running out. Choose wisely." The tension pulsed in the air, a living thing. With every tick of the clock, she felt the warmth of her children slipping further away. "What do you want from me?" Lisa's voice trembled, fighting back tears. "Just a simple sacrifice," he replied, his eyes glinting. "What will you give up? Your sanity? Your safety? Or perhaps your very essence?" She could hear the whispers intensify, like a swarm of angry bees buzzing in her ears, and for a moment they coalesced into a clear message: no way out. It echoed against her skull, wrapping around her heart, squeezing tight with a cold grip of despair. "I would do anything," she gasped, the words tumbling out before she could catch them. "Anything to save them!" His smile widened, revealing teeth that looked too sharp. "Then let the game begin." Around her, the shadows seemed to shift, curling and twisting as if alive. The children began to sway in unison, their eyes blank yet filled with an insatiable hunger for something she couldn't comprehend. "Let me in!" Lisa shouted, panic bubbling up inside. "Let me help them!" The cloaked figure turned, and Lisa saw a flash of its face, lips moving silently, a grim promise hidden within the darkness. A chill ran down her spine as the laughter resumed, ringing with torment, rising and falling like a tide. Suddenly, the shadows rushed at her, forcing her to her knees. She gasped as a vision swept over her, a glimpse into a nightmarish reality. Ella and Jacob, lost in a maze of dark corridors, reaching out, desperation etched on their tiny faces. Through shattered glass, she heard their voices calling for her, growing distant as the shadows entangled her limbs. "Choose," Mr. Richards commanded, his voice cutting through the din. "You have the power to tip the scale. Will you save them, or will you surrender to the darkness?" Lisa felt a presence tugging at her, pulling her deeper into the chaos, threatening to swallow her whole. The choice loomed over her like an executioner's axe. Heart racing, she searched the crowd of children. The faces around her twisted and morphed, whispers forming into taunts. "Join us." Pain lanced through her chest as she realized what it would mean to step forward, to plunge into that grotesque realm, to become part of the very fabric of darkness swirling around her. Was she willing to extinguish her own light to shield her children's? All at once, a sharp cry broke through the chaos. It was Ella, breaking free from the circle, reaching toward her. "Mom!" The sight ignited something deep within Lisa's soul. Without thinking, she pushed against the shadows restraining her, grit set in her teeth. No more games! She surged forward, every ounce of willpower focused on her children. But just as she reached the edge of the circle, a cold hand gripped her wrist, a vice tightening. The shadows swirled, and she was torn between the light of her daughter's plea and the darkness of Mr. Richards's smirk, a sneer of victory that echoed in the void. What price would she pay for her family? Darkness enveloped her, and the last thing she heard before it consumed her was laughter, gleeful, sinister. The game was far from over. What terrible truth lay in the darkness, and would she break free before it was too late? The darkness tightened around Lisa, drowning out the desperate cries of her children. Each fleeting glance at Ella's pleading face fueled her anguish. The shadows roared, distorted figures swirling and morphing, alive, hungry, and they pressed against her skin, trying to merge with her very essence. Fear turned her heart into a drum, its beat echoing in the cavern of despair enveloping her. "Let her go!" Ella's voice cut through the tempest, fragile yet fierce, a beacon that momentarily pierced the chaos. But Mr. Richards tightened his grip, that smile stretching impossibly wide. "Let the current take you, Lisa," he whispered, his breath foul like decay. "What have you to lose?" She felt the sharp edge of panic slicing through her thoughts. The temptation of succumbing to the darkness pulsed beneath her skin. The shadows promised power, a connection like the one her children sought. But at what cost? Her spirit clawed for clarity as visions of Ella and Jacob, trapped in an endless dark maze, flickered like shifting images. Their eyes, wide, terrified, haunted her. "You need to choose," he pressed, his voice like ice, piercing and cold. "Sacrifice is a part of the game. Embrace it or lose them forever." Through the storm of shadows, whispers entwined with her name, an eerie symphony coaxing her deeper. An unseen maw stretched before her, a chasm of insatiable greed. The air grew thick and sour, suffocating her hope, squeezing her throat tighter with every heartbeat. "Mom!" Jacob's voice echoed from the depths, pulling at the frayed ends of her will. "Stop this!" Lisa shrieked, desperation giving her strength. "You can't take them! I will fight for them!" Her hands balled into fists, pushing against the shadows enveloping her, but they flowed around her like water, dragging her down. "Fighting only deepens the sacrifice," Mr. Richards cooed mockingly, stepping closer. "The more you resist, the more you concede." As if in response, the air crackled. Shadows pulsed violently, writhing in a chaotic dance driven by otherworldly laughter. Lisa felt an urge claw its way out of her, a surge of primal instinct. She was not just a mother, she was a warrior of light, and she would fight tooth and nail to pull her children from this abyss. Steeling her resolve, she shouted, "I choose my children! I choose life!" In a single, defiant breath, the world around her shifted. Blinding light erupted from within her, cutting through the encroaching shadows like a hot knife through butter. The grip on her wrist loosened, and she stumbled forward, desperate to reach Ella and Jacob. But the moment didn't last. A force lunged at her from the darkness, slamming into her chest and knocking the breath from her lungs. The light flickered, dimmed, and shadows swarmed around her, thrumming with rage. "Come to me, then!" Mr. Richards bellowed, his once perfect smile now a gaping maw, teeth glinting like daggers. "Let it burn from your heart!" Lisa's chest felt like it was collapsing under the weight of terror. Gritting her teeth, she drew on every ounce of her strength. The chaos surged around her, threatening to drag her under, but she wouldn't let it happen, not to her children. "Hold on, Ella! Hold on, Jacob!" she yelled, her voice rising above the tempest. As shadows surged toward them, the laughter crescendoed to a deafening roar. Was it too late? Would she be able to save them from this swirling nightmare? In the blink of an eye, everything fell silent, frozen in a moment that felt suspended in time. What dark force lingered just beyond their grasp, and could Lisa possibly wield enough light to illuminate the abyss closing in around them as the game twisted to a close? The silence shattered like glass, a shrill shriek piercing through the starless void. Sudden, insatiable hunger clawed at Lisa's resolve, a gnawing doubt that threatened to swallow her whole. Where had the brightness gone? Panic suffocated her thoughts. Around her, the shadows spun tighter, coiling like serpents eager to crush their prey. Their whispers twisted into a monstrous chant, taunting her with phrases that wormed into her mind and devoured her courage. You cannot protect them. You cannot escape. "Stop!" Lisa gasped, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. But each breath grew heavier, the shadows entwining around her throat like a noose. Ella's and Jacob's faces trembled on the edge of her vision, slipping further away with each heartbeat. "Mom!" Ella's voice echoed in the void, so close, yet so impossibly far. Lisa strained to reach her, hands outstretched, desperation igniting her core. Before she could lunge, Mr. Richards stepped between them, a sinister grin spreading over his face. "You're fighting a futile battle, dear Lisa. This darkness craves what is most precious to you." Without warning, the shadows erupted, wild and chaotic. A vortex spun at her feet, drawing everything toward the center, a bottomless pit festering with malevolence. The air grew electric, buzzing with an unseen energy, a pulse of dread that quickened in rhythm with Lisa's heart. "Let them go!" she bellowed, as if sheer will could shatter the dark hold around her. But the shadows coiled tighter, and Mr. Richards leaned in, his breath foul, rancid. "What's a mother without sacrifice? The game requires balance." He paused, letting the words hang heavy. "Can you afford the toll? Your power will rise, but only at their expense." The truth cut deeper than any knife. Lisa's heart plummeted. Did they really stand a chance? In that suffocating moment, new voices joined the shadows. Other mothers, others like her, who had once fought for love. "We fell. We lost. Stomp the darkness before it claims you, Lisa." Their pleas melded. With the cacophony around her, a haunting reminder of sacrifices already made. "No!" she cried out, the words surging from her gut. It was a lifeline, a tether to the light. Analogously, a wildfire birthing flames of resolve, igniting every sinew in her body. "I won't let go!" She launched herself forward, just as a sharp scream erupted from her children. The darkness stuttered, recoiling from her defiance. Shadows trembled under the weight of her conviction. She could feel them falter. "Your choice, Lisa," Mr. Richards hissed, fury glinting in his eyes. "Gain power or lose them forever." Her decision etched itself into the air, and the world shifted once more. Ethereal light wrapped around her, illuminating the suffocating dread. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the blaze, threatening to swallow them whole. Lisa felt the energy surge within her. She looked over her shoulder. "Ella! Jacob!" she screamed. "Run now!" But the shadows lunged at her, wrath built upon their rejection. The shadows were relentless, and now they surged back around her. The light flickered and dimmed, leaving her in a world of shadows once more. A sense of impending doom loomed near as the laughter swelled again, echoing like thunder. "Will you sacrifice your essence to save them?" Mr. Richards taunted, his voice hovering in the air like a vaporous cloud. "Or will you let your precious children fall victim to the abyss?" Desperate for an answer, Lisa froze, heart pounding, sticky with fear. The silhouette of a darker figure emerged behind Mr. Richards, looming larger, shrouded in shadows, yet distinct enough to send tremors through Lisa's core. Was this the force behind Mr. Richards? His laughter faded into a whisper. "Choose, Lisa, or be consumed." Lisa's breath hitched, consumed with dread. What to do? The next moment would determine everything, but would she be strong enough to confront this deeper terror? Before she could take her next breath, the darkness expanded, and a wave of icy air washed over her, leaving a bone-chilling message that wrapped around her heart. Would she uncover the truth lurking in the shadows before it was too late? The shadows writhed and danced like a tempest, an undulating mass alive with menace. Lisa felt the suffocating grip tighten, clutching at her throat, pulling her down. A darkness fueled by fear itself. Ella's faint cries faded, swallowed by the abyss surrounding her. "Make your choice," Mr. Richards sneered, his voice a guttural echo that slithered into her ears. "Will you embrace the dark, or will you watch them slip away?" Panic surged through her, raw and thrumming. The fleeting image of Jacob toying with his building blocks, Ella's laughter as they played tag in the sun, moments slipping away like grains of sand through her desperate fingers. Sacrifice? Was that the price for power? Her mind raced, churning with images of what might come next, the terror mounting like a heavy fog. She could feel the shadows pulse around her, dark and pulsating, as if alive. They thrummed with their own demands, whispering temptations that clawed at her sanity. "Power, safety, freedom," they hissed, coaxing her like a serpent, promising her an escape from the crushing fear. "No!" Lisa shouted, letting her voice cut through that infertile chorus. It was a plea and a challenge, a burst of defiance that rang out. "I will not choose darkness over my children." But the shadows shrieked in response, furious and ravenous. The ground beneath her feet shuddered, fissures opening like gaping mouths ready to devour her whole. The laughter of Mr. Richards twisted into a wild cacophony, intertwining with ancient, terrifying wails, as if the darkness itself was mocking her bravery. The colder air bit into her skin, sharp and frigid. She realized then that the shadows were not just a manifestation of her fear. They were drawn to her despair, feeding off it like a beast starved for sustenance. Suddenly, everything began to spin. Lisa closed her eyes, clenching her fists. "I won't let you win," she demanded aloud, each word a small act of rebellion against the encroaching tide. An ember of hope flickered inside her, struggling against the choking darkness. She remembered the tales of strength shared among mothers, bonds forged through sacrifice, resilience. But as if answering her resolve, the vortex swirled faster, and shadows lunged with violent eagerness. The whisper of 1,000 lost souls echoed in her ears, drowning her with agonizing regret. The cold was overwhelming, suffocating. Shadows clawed at her hair and clothes, trying to pull her under. Images of Ella and Jacob flashed, their innocence solid in her mind, fueling her resolve to fight. In the swirling chaos, that silhouette behind Mr. Richards began to grow clearer. A form deep within the shadows, dark and twisted, yet somehow familiar. The realization hit her like a freight train. No, it can't be. Her heart dropped as she recognized the figure. It was a pale reflection of her, a younger version of herself, eyes wide with terror, yet bearing the essence of despair solidified in a cruel smile. "You seek to defy the inevitable," the figure whispered, summoning fragments of Lisa's forgotten memories. Fury ignited within Lisa, intertwining with her pain. "You are not me. I am stronger than my fears." The shadows thrummed even louder, swelling to a crescendo. They pushed back against her will. What game was this? She glanced once more at her children, vulnerable and close to being consumed, and drew energy from their necessity, a mother's instinct rooted deep. As the vortex swirled violently around her, Lisa extended her arms wide, welcoming the light creeping through the edges of her resolve. "I choose love," she screamed, channeling all her energy into a singular blast of defiance. For a heartbeat, the shadows recoiled, gasping as a brilliant light erupted from her core, pushing back against the darkness like the dawn breaking over a long, fear-filled night. But the howl of Mr. Richards rose like a dark storm, vowing revenge as something darker stirred within the depths behind him. Lisa's heart hammered wildly, the ground trembling beneath her feet. Would this surge of light be enough to reclaim her children, or had she simply incited the wrath of what lay in the depths? A fresh wave of icy dread washed over her, a keen reminder of the sacrifices demanded. "Can you withstand the storm?" whispered the figure in shadows, each word warm with malice. And as the light flickered and dimmed, Lisa braced herself, ready for the coming horror. What awaited her in the dark beyond the light? Would she really be able to save her family, or was this the beginning of her end? The light surged and dimmed, flickering like a candle struggling against the gusts of an unseen wind. Lisa's heart raced, every beat echoing the primal fear that skittered along her spine. She felt the shadows recoil, but their hesitation was brief. A guttural laugh ripped through the air, shattering the fragile facade of hope. "Ah, the light! How quaint!" Mr. Richards taunted, his figure distorted by the swirling darkness. Shadows clung to him as if he were their master, a grotesque puppet minstrel leading a dance of despair. "You think love can conquer what you cannot even comprehend?" Fear wrapped around her throat like a tightening noose. She could feel the weight of the abyss, heavy and unyielding. The silhouette of her younger self loomed closer, eyes hollow, lips curling into a grin that sent chills slithering down her arms. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut, reciting a mantra, as if her words were armor against the encroaching darkness. "I choose love. I choose light." The voices of her children, soft and sweet, tugged at her heart. "Mommy!" echoed Ella's familiar tone, but it turned jagged, morphing into something dark and twisted. "Where are you, Mommy? Help us, please." A surge of anger bubbled inside Lisa, fuming against the primal dread. "No!" she bellowed, opening her eyes wide, staring defiantly at the mocking figure of Mr. Richards. "You will not take them!" But darkness surged forward, hungry and relentless. The vortex spun like a crazed whirlwind, pulling at her legs, urging her to join the shadows. With every ounce of her strength, she plunged her hands into the radiant spark inside her, pouring everything she had into the straining light. She felt it flare, pushing against the shadows, illuminating the faces of her children. They shone like stars, a promise of hope glimmering faintly in the terrible abyss. Just then, the shadows howled, a sound that cut through her like ice. They lunged with reckless abandon, grasping at her feet, hungry to consume the cherished light of her love. "Your choice will be your curse," the shadowed figure crooned, flickering closer. "You can't save them all, Lisa." Cold sweat slid down her back. Nobody to sacrifice. The thought lurked in her mind, gnawing at her like a persistent rat. But could she really face the darkness in its entirety? The echo of choice pressed heavily upon her. Suddenly, the threads of the vortex began to shift. The swirling blackness twisted, disorienting her, drawing her deeper. Cracks splintered through the ground, revealing an empty void that whispered her name, seductive and sweet. It was an invitation or a trap. "No, I am not afraid," she screamed, voices rising in her head, a discordant symphony of self-doubt, fear, and love. And just as her resolve threatened to falter, the light within her surged brighter, blasting the shadows back like the first rays of dawn, scattering the darkness of the night. In that moment, she caught sight of Mr. Richards as the shadow strained against her will, his face twisted with rage, teeth bared like a wolf ready to pounce. The darkness seethed away, gnashing as her heart surged, determined. Each breath became a drum, each beat a reminder to fight, to reclaim what was lost. But would her strength last against the relentless tide? As the shadows retreated momentarily, she sensed a deeper darkness, lurking, watching, waiting. Was there an even greater horror behind her defiance? "Foolish mother," the figure hissed, dissolving into shadows like smoke in the wind. "You've only just begun to uncover your fate." With that, Lisa felt the atmosphere thicken, plunging into a stifling silence. It was more than a threat, it was a declaration. But as she stood staunch against the darkness, she realized with a chilling dread, this storm was only the beginning. Quaking, where would this harrowing journey lead her next? What choice awaited when she faced the depths of true terror? The storm raged, swirling chaos closing in around Lisa as the shadows writhed like frantic serpents. She could feel the suffocating dread trying to pull her back into the abyss. But the burning ache in her heart kept her anchored, an unwavering force pulsating with love and courage. "No!" she shouted, her voice ringing out defiantly above the raging storm. "I won't let you take my kids!" With a roar of despair, she surged forward, fueled by the flickering glow of hope emanating from her determination to save Ella and Jacob. Shadows clawed at her legs, their icy tendrils reaching for her, hungry for fear and despair. But she stood tall, heart pounding, as memories of her children flooded her mind. Laughter in the backyard, sleepy smiles in the morning light, their tiny hands gripping hers. "Stay with me," she called, forcing her voice to carry through the darkness. "We are not lost." At that moment, a blinding light erupted from her chest, casting away shadows as if they were mere fragments of a fading nightmare. The darkness hissed, recoiling like a wounded animal under the fierce illumination. The figures of her children flickered into view, faces pale and frightened, but still full of innocence and strength. Ella stood there, her blue dinosaur clutched tightly in her small hands, and Jacob, his wide eyes filled with unyielding love. "Mommy," they cried, voices echoing in unison as they began to break free from the grip of the darkness. Lisa's heart soared with fierce urgency. "Get to me, now!" With each command, she felt the power of their connection swell, wrapping her in warmth, igniting a blaze inside her that rivaled the storm itself. Ella and Jacob dashed toward her, racing against their impending doom. "Come on, kids," Lisa shouted, extending her arms, heart screaming for them to break through the shadows. "You can do it! I'm right here!" But just as they began to navigate the murky veil, Mr. Richards stepped into their path, darkened laughter spilling from his lips. Oh, how tragic! They're going to miss the fun. Shadows slithered around him like a cloak, gleefully waiting to ensnare their prey. Time slowed. Lisa could see the shadows reach toward Ella and Jacob. Fear threatened to swallow her whole. She fought against it, willing her heart to beat louder, to drown out the taunting of the darkness. "No!" she roared, a fierce impulse surging as the light inside her flared brighter than ever. She stoked the fire of defiance within, drawing strength from the love that had birthed her children, the love that could shatter even the darkest of foes. With one powerful step, she thrust herself into the chaos. The light pulsed, a shield around her, illuminating the blackness like a sun breaking through the night. The shadows writhed and shrieked in agony, peeling away from her children, desperate to retreat from the blaze that swirled around Lisa. "Grab my hand," she yelled, the urgency of her tone forcing the kids into action. Ella and Jacob reached out, and she felt their small fingers wrap around her own, anchoring her in this fleeting moment of time. In one swift motion, Lisa yanked them into her embrace, holding them tight as the darkness howled in protest. Their warmth intertwined as she summoned every last drop of strength to pull them through the chaos together. "Hold on!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. The darkness recoiled, swirling around them, trying to grip at their ankles. But they burst through, the light pushing away the shadows like a tidal wave. In one final explosion of brightness, they broke free. The shadows shattered, collapsing like a dark veil pulled from the night sky. Lisa turned, pulling her children tightly to her chest, breathless with relief. But the darkness was relentless. From behind, Lisa could see Mr. Richards, his eyes burning with a fury that made the air crackle. "You think this is over? The game has only just begun," he hissed, voice dripping with venom. The echo of his laughter rang as the shadows pooled behind him, gathering strength. "No!" Lisa cried, feeling the anchor of fear gripping her anew. She pressed her children closer, heart pounding in her chest, and in that moment she realized this wasn't just a victory, it was a promise. Together they had faced the darkest night.